I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I said so. I have this hairy mole right on my shoulder, you know. And my bestest buddy Allah, he works for me though. I call him God to make you think I'm pure as white snow. In the damp cave of Hira I met this bad man. He squeezed me until I threw up the Quran. When I ran to Khadija in anguish and fears, she explained, "This is Jibreel," and wiped off my tears. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I am him, and Allah caters to my needs and every whim. His reward is that I let people think he is Lord. Then he lets me torment the people when I get bored. Now the world must revert and become just like me, and never ask questions and never be free. You'll become dumb blind Muslims and do as you're told, or your heads will be rolling your family's soul. Oh, Aisha, ooh la la, what a pretty dress. May I wear it? Your dresses get those revelations rolling. No, don't touch my eye makeup. Mine is too young for makeup. I'm 54 after all. My religion, Islam, grew like fungi on bread, due to people's reluctance to part with their head. And because I got rid of the people who think Allah's slaves can be duped to do things that sure stink. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I said it. I meet up with Jibreel when I'm in need of you. And my bestest buddy Allah delivers on time. These girls and boys and slaves and all these riches of mine. I'm Muhammad, I'm a prophet because I told you. My brothel in the sky awaits if you say it's true. But if Allah will find out in the mosque you did fart, He'll dump you in the hellfire when you depart. He'll dump you in the hellfire when you depart. Oh, Aisha, I still feel the pain after the food I ate in Khaybar. Allah is cutting my aorta.
Hello and welcome everybody. God bless you all. I am here with Daughter of Christ and we are going to be discussing some Dawah drama. There's been a lot of Dawah drama going on lately, but before we get into it, I just want to welcome our sister Daughter of Christ. Welcome. Thanks for joining tonight to discuss this topic with us.
You're very welcome, brother, and welcome to you also and everybody here. We've been having good times this year, brother. The Dawah gangs have started to implode, and they're all doing it at once. But it's so much so that we have to give it a whole stream and maybe another stream to come as well. Please come, invite your loved ones, your friends, and we're gonna have a fun time today.
So this is one of the items of drama that we're going to be discussing to do with Dawah. And the reason why we're discussing this is because we're seeing that the Dawah guys are in a bit of a weird position where they don't know, they're not in agreement. Now, I just want to kind of comment on them in general, the Dawah guys in general. A lot of them don't really get along with each other. I think it's because they're egomaniacs. I know David Wood has said that in order for like a Daniel or Ali Dawah or Muhammad Hijab to get to their level and do what they do, that they're narcissistic, and they definitely have narcissistic traits. That's definitely, I definitely agree with him. Now, they don't get along with each other, and so they disagree on how to give Dawah. This particular debate that we're going to be talking about, we're not going to really be reviewing it, just kind of going over some of the details of what they're talking about, but we want to kind of give like an analysis of really what's going on. And Daniel Hakikachu debated this guy Javad I don't know what's his name, Dr. Javad Hashmi.
Yeah, Dr. Javad Hashmi, which
yeah.
is the one on the far left on your
Yeah.
screen,
And then we have Sajid
and on the other side of your screen,
on the far right.
and you got Daniel Hakikachu there in the middle.
Yeah. Now, Javad is not your typical Muslim Dawah or Da'i. I was going to say Dawah Gandis, but you know,
Dawah gang.
Dawah gang. He's not your typical because he's not really in the circles that you know. Most of these Dawah guys, they're Salafi. They're very extreme. He's actually promoting a different form of Islam. So the Dawah drama that we're going to be discussing today is the different direction that these guys are going in. And as I said, there's a lot of different items of discussion that we could have. We're just going to tackle this one today. Lord willing, we'll have more with our sister Hartoon. She'll be joining us, Lord willing, in the near future, where we're going to be going over other things you guys have most likely been keeping up with or hearing about. Sneeko, Othman, Ali Dawah, Muhammad Hijab, different things going on with them, and more. So the reason why we're bringing this to people's attention is because we're just kind of showing that the leadership or the Dawah gangs can't get along, and we're going to talk a little bit about why that is. So anything that I said, sister, that you want to comment on or add to?
Yeah, the way I see Dawah gangs, you know, once I've left Islam, come to the Lord Jesus, now spiritually, we know that they are sons of the devil. They're on the kingdom of darkness, whether knowingly or unknowingly, until the Lord saves them and they decide to repent. You know, we pray that for them. But I realized as soon as I left that side of things that they are basically like, you know, a gang of robbers,
Yeah,
or a bunch of thieves.
yeah.
You think that they're all together
Mm-hmm.
when they are trying to steal something, or they're
Mhm.
going for a big steal. They all work
Mhm.
together. Then when it comes to time to you know, divide the booty, they all start fighting each other and killing each other.
Right.
That's basically the spirit of Islam, and it's very similar to that of, you know, Muhammad and his companions. As soon as, you know, they were all into the war booty, how we divide it. As soon as Muhammad died, they all started to kill each other and fight for power and, you know, shed blood. And, you know, those divisions, from that you get Sunni and Shia. But even within Sunnism, Muhammad said that there will be 72 or 73 sects in my ummah, and only one will be right.
Only one.
So he's basically just sown a lot of the seed of discord in his own ummah, because every one of them think they're right, and the rest are like deviants and kafirs and all kinds of names. We don't call them that; they call each other that.
Exactly. So another motivation for highlighting this type of drama going on between the Dawah gangs, like I said, we could be talking about a number of other things, Andrew Tate, Sneeko things. We could add to the list. It's really one of the points is to highlight the idea that Muslims try to portray is that Islam is just everyone's unified. We all believe the same thing, and they're not really forthright or forthcoming with their divisions, and their mainstream guys are, you know, social media personalities I'm talking about, are disagreeing with each other, constantly fighting with each other over things that have to do with Islam and representing Islam and Islamic doctrine, interpretation of Islam. We were just watching another one today between Shamsi and Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawah. These guys are constantly at each other's throats. And the source of that, the reason why, is because they are not united on the truth. They are united on the lies that they spread, and they try to bring people into Islam. But once they're in Islam, they don't know where to go. It's like a chicken with its head cut off. They don't know what direction to go and where to go. And so what we're going to be, you know, getting into is this particular debate that Daniel Haqiqatjou did between Javad Hashimi. And yeah, so just to give some background, my personal take on this Javad guy, he's very low. From what I understand, he's a physician. So he's a medical doctor, probably qualified, unlike Zakir Naik. And but
A medical doctor that has 7 hours to spare for a debate. Just
Yeah,
saying. I mean, I know a lot of medical doctors. I happen to know a lot, and I
Yes,
don't know any who has 7 hours to spare
yeah,
in a day. Just saying.
that's
But
right.
anyway, go on.
So it's possible that he's not practicing medicine. That's possible because he's also pursuing a PhD and as well. So in another completely unrelated area. So it's possible he just got his medical degree. But anyway, so I'm just kind of giving a little background about him. And so he's working on a PhD. He's a PhD candidate at Harvard University, Harvard University, where he's studying Islamic studies. Okay,
So, but
that's his kind of foundation for Islam. It's this historical studies. He presents himself as an academic. He presents himself as a historian. However, he's actually a very low level type of guy. He's he debated Robert Spencer before, and after the debate with Robert Spencer, he revealed that he's some personality that Robert Spencer has been tracking with for a number of years, a guy who they've been going back and forth with, some anonymous identity, and he ended up revealing that that's actually him. So Robert Spencer was completely thrown off. He had no idea that this was the guy, but he only found out after the debate. And then Robert Spencer, he revealed a number of things about him, such as ripping people off, saying, if you give me this much money, then I'll do this to Robert Spencer, or maybe I forget the exact details. Maybe write a book or something. I'll publish something. Anyway, Robert Spencer revealed that this guy is a scammer. He's a fraud and a liar. And interestingly, Daniel did the same thing after the debate as well. I've only seen 2 debates with him. I haven't seen the entire 6.5 hour debate between Daniel and him. I watched the sections where it's like the cross-examination part. To me, that's like the most interesting part of a debate. So I wasn't listening to the 10 or 20-minute openings, whatever it was for each part.
yeah, because even though I know you're not a physician, brother, but you don't have that much time to spend 7 hours. I want people to look at the screen. At these 3 people here, do you see the progressive building of the beard from the one side to the other? So the way I see it is the one on the extreme left, he's got no beard. That means he doesn't believe in many sources.
Yeah.
And the more beard you go down, that means you believe in more and more sources of Islam, more and more extremists. That's how I see him.
No, someone actually. No, I don't really follow these guys too closely, but the people that I do follow, sometimes they interact with them, so it shows up on my Twitter feed. So I get to see some of their posts and their interactions on Twitter. Someone actually said something very similar to him. They said, "No beard, no Islamic opinion." So in other words, if you don't have a beard, we're not going to take your opinion seriously. And that really is how most traditional Muslims, your average Muslim is not going to take a guy with clean cut, clean shaven seriously when it comes to his opinions on Islam. So I was just getting into a little bit of Javad's background. So he presents himself as an academic historian. He's actually not those things. He's a really low level guy. He rarely actually engages in academia. When he does, he's doing it to expose Islam. What do I mean by that? So my opinion of Javad is that he's basically a Quran only Muslim. He's basically Quran only Muslim because he rejects all of the Islamic tradition. He says he doesn't reject the hadith. What he means, though, is not that he accepts them in terms of a religious authority, but he actually means that he accepts them as a historic witness as to what Muslims believed at different times in history. So this hadith represents what Muslims believed here. But he doesn't actually subscribe to those things. So to me, that's a Quran only Muslim. He says that he's Quran centric as opposed to Quran only. So he just kind of plays. He does semantics.
Yeah, it's just semantics. Is playing hairs. It's basically practically the same thing. If you don't believe in the hadith, by the way, or if you don't take the hadith, you can't be a Muslim. That's just how it is practically, because the Quran doesn't tell you basic things. It tells you to pray, doesn't tell you how to pray, how many times to pray, where to face to pray. It tells you to go Hajj, doesn't tell you how to go Hajj, what the rituals are for Hajj, when to go to, how to go to Hajj, what to do in Hajj, what to say, where to go, all these things that Muslims actually do.
Exactly.
So you need something outside of the Quran to be a Muslim practically. So that's why he has no beard, in my opinion, because to have a beard, that you get that from the Sunnah. Quran doesn't tell you to have a beard, and Muhammad is very clear about, Islam is very clear about having growing a beard is part of you being a man and being a Muslim. So for me, when a Muslim says he doesn't believe in hadith, it's a joke.
Yeah.
No matter how
he plays on the semantics though. He'll say, I didn't say I don't believe in hadith. I say that I don't follow them, or they don't prescribe my religious practices for
but
me.
if you can't be a Muslim without following the hadith,
Exactly.
It's impossible. It's like trying to say, let me walk without legs. I don't believe in legs, but I can walk.
Yeah,
it's just, it doesn't, basically a joke.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how intellectual you look or seem, or whatever, fake qualifications you have. If you do not believe in hadith, you can't be a Muslim. You need hadith. I'm sorry. I don't like hadith. I don't like the Quran. I don't like all of it. But I know that what a logical thing to do is. And I used to be a Muslim. And day to day, if you don't have hadith, you cannot practice anything. Yeah. It's basically all just concepts in the air.
Yeah. Now, so that's Javad. Javad calls himself a modernist. Modernist just basically means someone who gets to make up their own religion and then justify it by different verses in the Quran. So Daniel actually was pointing this out during the debate, and it's going to sound kind of strange because we're Christians, and we, as daughter of Christ noted, she's former Muslima, but it's going to sound like we're deciding with Daniel in this debate and this discussion. And the only reason why it's going to sound like that is because Daniel's actually representing the Islam as it really is, and Javad is just sort of making things up. So I'm gonna paraphrase some of what Daniel said, which was that Javad essentially, when he takes something from the Quran or interprets the Quran in a way that suits his narrative, for example, the verse that Muslims usually take out of context and say, to you your religion, to me my religion, he uses that to support the idea that there's religious freedom. But then you go to a verse that talks about subjugating Christians and Jews and forcing them to pay the jizya, and he says, oh well, that there's a historical understanding there, and it doesn't actually apply for today, and it's only for so he picks and chooses, and Daniel was right to point this out, that he picks and chooses the different things in the Quran that agree and aligns with his beliefs. So to me, a modernist, and I want to get your take as well, sister, is someone who basically just kind of makes up their own religion and justifies it through some certain texts. You might have a Christian say he's a modernist, or a Jewish person say that they're modernist or reform Jews. They do this, they don't really follow the religion as it is. They just kind of pick and choose different principles and concepts. So modernist Muslims, they say that they're Muslims, but really they're just kind of making things up as they go. That's my take. What do you think?
Yeah, again, if someone says I'm a modernist, they're a joke to me, because Islam came 1400 years ago. It came in the form of a man called Muhammad and a book called the Quran. That's what it is. So that's not modern to me. You have to follow, if you want to call yourself Muslim and say I follow Muhammad, you have to follow the man that was. We don't have a modern form of Muhammad. Muhammad said, I'm for all mankind at all times. Quran says, I'm from all mankind for all times. So that's what it is. Same thing with being a Christian. I don't call myself a modern Christian. Jesus came 2,000 years ago. Now, exactly. He always was and always is present and always lives. Yes. But the book, his message, his gospel came 2,000 years ago. That's what it is. That's what I follow. I don't change it and modernize it and make it something different. Exactly. If you want to do that, then call yourself something else. Don't call yourself...
There's no such thing as modernist or Christian.
No, or modern... I don't know about Jewish people, but you can talk to them. But if they want to follow Moses came all that time ago. So if you want to make some stuff up, call it something else, is what I say. And it's the same for Islam.
Yeah.
Now, someone asked about Shia, do they have their own hadith?
Yeah.
They have their own sources that are not the same as Sunni sources, but they're still other than the Quran.
Right.
They believe the Quran, but they need other stuff outside the Quran to tell them how to do things.
To interpret it, to follow
interpret
it.
Yeah. Just as Sunnis do. Again, you cannot follow the Quran just what comes in it in that small book to tell you how to be a Muslim. And follow the rules and the rulings. It's not big. It's not detailed enough at all. In fact, it's very skeletal. If anything, it's very cryptic. It's not. It doesn't even. Some verses don't come in full sentences, so you do need something outside of it. Go on, bro.
Right. So that's Javad. Daniel, he takes the approach that Ali Dawah has very recently adopted, which is to boast about the fact, Ali Dawah's new thing is, his new argument is about the fact that Islam is intolerant, and that's drawing people, in his view, to Islam. When what he means is, all these things that people would find offensive, or something that's like not palatable to accept, or something that's like morally wrong or evil. He's saying now we're like boasting. Ali Dawah was saying now we're boasting about these things. We're boasting about the fact that we want to do this, and that. That you guys say, women's rights, or women getting beaten, or things. He's like, you guys usually point that out like it's a bad thing against us, but now we're embracing it, and we're using these things to grow our religion. Daniel is very similar to that, although I don't think him and Ali Dawah get along. Like I said, these guys are most like egomaniacs, and they don't really get along too well. So Ali Dawah and him, they don't get along, but in this point they're similar. Ali Dawah has said that if his 9-year-old daughter reached puberty, that she'd be ready to be married off. What that means to us is that these guys are representing Islam on that level, to some extent being truthful about what Islam teaches. Now, other areas they're going to lie about, they're going to be dishonest about, or they're just going to be ignorant about. Maybe they're going to say something that's not true without realizing like what Islam really teaches about it. So on these topics, the topics that they debated, Daniel and Javad, ethics, sexual ethics, religious freedoms, and slavery. Those were kind of the 3 debates that they had in one stream, and they were meant to have another debate the next night. so these guys, they had a lot of time on their hands to do that kind of stuff, but they canceled the follow-up debate for whatever reason. And so some of the things that came out of this debate that I noticed was, so we talked about kind of their backgrounds. Javad's weakness is that because of his position as a modernist, it really could, and also because of his academic studies, he knows historically this is what Islam is. This is what Muslims practice. This is how they practice Islam. And so he says, yes, Daniel is actually correct in his views if the tradition is correct. So in other words, if the tradition represents what Islam is, then Daniel is actually correct. If the Islamic tradition is actually representative of what Muhammad taught and what the Quran says, then Daniel is correct. That's Jawad's position. Javad is arguing that the tradition is not correct. And Javad is actually arguing that you have Muhammad, you have the Quran, and then within that like first generation, the companions just completely went off, and they started doing apostate wars and things like. And Javad doesn't agree with that. He thinks that that's departure from the Quran. So that to me is Javad's weakness, is that he, as this modernist, completely rejects the Islamic tradition, the Islamic history, although he knows it to the extent that he shared on the topics that were debated, and he actually rejects it all outright because he thinks it contradicts the Quran. But really, we discussed earlier, it doesn't really contradict the Quran. He's like he's like the standard. Javad is the standard in his religion, and what he believes in, he tries to justify from the Quran. So it really doesn't go back to the Quran; it goes back to Javad. So what do you think about that, sister?
It's basically he's trying to live with some kind of morality in the West, so he needs to make Islam palatable. So in order to make Islam palatable, you have to chop off 90% of it, starting from he started from the minute Muhammad died. All the companions went off course and did their own thing. That's basically more than like 99% of Islamic tradition and history. And even if you decide all the companions of Muhammad are deviant, and only Muhammad was right, they didn't do anything that Muhammad didn't do. In fact, Muhammad did worse than they did. Muhammad lived a very short, comparatively short life of about 63 years. He basically had prophet's life of 20 years, and in those 20 years, how many battles? Scores of battles. You're talking dozens and dozens of battles. He wasn't in peace for more than a few weeks at a time. Muhammad was, until his last illness at least, and even then there were he was sending, when he couldn't fight, he was sending troops out to fight. As soon as he died, the companions went out to fight. They just continued what Muhammad did. And Muhammad actually praised those companions that Javad goes against. He to at least 10 of them he gives promise of paradise, complete promise of paradise. And in that group are actually some of the four rightly guided caliphs that came after him. And one of them is mentioned in the Quran, Abu Bakr, in one of the verses, ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار, you know, the one that was with him on his way to Medina, and was with him in the cave where they hid from the mushrikeen. Ali, apparently, you know, according to the tradition, was about to sacrifice his life for Muhammad when he hid in Muhammad's bed, you know, and gave Muhammad time to flee to Medina. So these people that he's wanting to discredit are part and parcel of Muhammad was, and, you know, followed his example to the letter. And they're the ones who actually gave us Muhammad's story to their children, and, you know, later on started being written down according to Islamic tradition 200 years later, which is a long time. But anyway, according to that, you know, those are the people that the chains came from. So if you want to discredit Islam, go ahead. But I would say leave Islam. That would have been easier for him than to just chop off 99.9% of the tradition.
Yeah, I agree. Just leave Islam, all three of you, Javad, Daniel, and and Sajid. Leave Islam, repent, come to Jesus. That's the truth. You'll have the truth in Jesus. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Okay, Daniel, I thought, no, this isn't really a problem with Daniel's position. It's more of a personal thing to do with the debate. What I noticed in the debate was that Daniel is not too good on his feet when he's put on the spot with something that he's not too familiar with. He seems to stumble. There were a couple of times when Javad, or okay, just I have one in particular, but I remember through the debate, I was like, yeah, right here, right here, right here. But just kind of off the top of my head right now, we were just going over some things in the debate earlier. When they discussed in the Quran, chapter 4, verse 25, and we can bring that up actually, you'll see that Daniel, when he interacts with that point, it seems like it's new to him. Or maybe he is not familiar with the verse or the interpretation. And so Javad seemed like he kind of had the upper hand on that argument, but Daniel, if he was more kind of familiar with the verse or the interpretations, I think that he would have had a response back to Javad. So Javad, one of his points that he had over Daniel was just simply that, like, you know, catching him off guard, sort of thing. So again, it's not really against Daniel's position, more just Daniel on a personal thing. So just kind of pointing out strengths and weaknesses in terms of what their positions are in their personal kind of debate. Like I mentioned, how this guy Javad is like very low life and very scummy person. Daniel, you know, he's also a low life as well. The guy promotes, you know, sex slavery and all sorts of other evil things, but he's just representing Islam as it truly is. So what we can get into now, we can show like a clip from the debate, where yeah, we can show a clip from the debate where you'll see that Daniel's tradition, the Islamic tradition, is kind of put on the spot from Javad. Javad knows, at least to the extent of this debate, he knows what the Islamic tradition is.
Mm-hmm.
He rejects it, but he's just pointing out this is what the Islamic tradition is, and so this is what Daniel believes in, and this is what the Islamic tradition teaches. So let's play this, and you guys can see for yourself the stuff that Daniel believes in which he doesn't object to. He believes in this, and just kind of hear it for yourselves. It's pretty
Yes.
shocking.
Yes, go for it.
And all this kind of stuff, and I agree with him.
So
But then
this is Javad. This is Javad speaking, and he's just kind of going over his presentation. Here we go.
how come he isn't bothered by this sexualization and objectification of women? Here's Ibn Umar, who is the Prophet's companion, who would put his hand between the breasts and buttocks of the slave girl before he was purchasing them. And this is a chain that's authenticated by Sheikh Al-Albani. And he would shake the breast of this woman. And when he would explain himself, he would say, she is but an item for sale. In fact, the idea of examining the goods before you buy them, this was widely accepted by Islamic jurists, who said that this verse about
if we just go back and you just want to pause here, look at what this says. That so Javad is kind of just pointing out the evils of Islam here, and he's showing us this is what Islam says, and it's a very evil topic. So I'm sorry, sister, to kind of have you comment on this, but we just see the evil nature of Islam. Javad is pointing this out, and the reason why he objects to this is because he's actually adhering to his conscience in regards to these points. Other areas like lying and deception, he's numbed his conscience, or he's just kind of hardened himself, become callous in other areas. Daniel accepts all this stuff. Look at this. If you have a slave in Islam, you can and you want to kind of examine her, if you want to take her, you can put your hand all over her, between her breasts, her bottom, and this is authentic. Al-Albani says it's authentic. And so they would just be touching these women, and they would have their breasts exposed. And it says that he can look at her, all of her, except for, her private part. I'm just kind of using a euphemism, but you can read it on the screen here. So this is what Islam teaches. And so we can continue listening, or sister, if you want to comment on anything, or if it's too awkward, you don't have to, but what do you think?
Yeah, like I said before, he wants to reject it because it's horrible. So I understand, but he should have just rejected Islam. By the way, the sources that he has on the screen, Al-Bayhaqi and Sunan al-Kubra, this Musannaf Abdul Razak as well, which they're all very accepted and authentic Sunni.
Yeah, like he knows the sources. He has the information. He just completely rejects it.
Yeah, so he rejects it. I'm glad that he rejects it. He's better than Daniel,
in that regard.
Pikachu in that regard. He just doesn't go far enough. He needs to reject the religion because it's part of the religion. Thank you, Samawi.
God bless you, brother Samawi.
Okay, so
so we can kind of continue on. Again, I just wanted to point this out to show the kind of things that these guys are doing. So again, the stream is about Dawah drama, and we're showing how these Muslims have different directions that they're trying to put the Dawah in. A lot of the time, or a lot of the things that we're seeing recently, is really just rejecting earlier ways of doing things. Like we've seen Ali Dawah now saying that the scientific miracles are completely debunked, that they're absolute nonsense, and he throws it out the window. And maybe we'll do a stream elaborating that more. I'm just using that as a point to say, however many years ago, it was even very recently, it was popular for Muslims to go appeal to quote unquote scientific miracles. And so what I'm saying is that they're shifting now for how they do Dawah. It's just amazing what these liars and deceptive people will do to try to bring people into Islam. They'll do anything that they can to try to bring you into Islam under the chains of the devil, and it's really sad. So we're seeing that what we're seeing here is Muslims now going after Islam, and so this guy he's a Muslim, he's using this as a point to attack Islam, and the other one is using this as a point to prove Islam is true, and he's embracing these things. Daniel's one of those guys who he's like trying to be edgy, or he's trying to be whatever, like he just says it how it is type of thing. He's not really trying to like I don't know exactly his motivations. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But what I will say is that he does represent the Islamic tradition in these areas very well, and he just tells you how it is.
Right.
So it is it comes off like he's being edgy, or he's trying to kind of give some sort of shock value, but it seems like he actually really believes the stuff that he's saying, and he's representing Islam accurately. So here we go. We'll continue on.
Goods before you buy them. This was widely accepted by Islamic jurists who said that this verse about covering up modestly, 3359, was actually only for free women. It wasn't for slave girls. In fact, slave girls were not allowed to cover up. This was forbidden because for slave girls, the aura, or the amount to cover, not allowed.
So he's kind of going over his slides pretty fast, but he again gives Al-Albani saying that this is authentic, and that the covering or the cloak is only for free women, only for the free woman of the believers. So if you're a slave, there's no covering for you. So.
Yeah, this is correct, by the way, because the verse does say you cover with your, you cover with your garments, so that the women would be recognized, and not abused. That means that they needed to put a mark on which woman to abuse and which one is okay to not abuse. So if a woman is covered up, meaning to cover her face as well, by the way, wearing a hijab, that means she's a free woman. A free woman is not, she walks in the markets, no one should touch her, because if you do that, her tribe, her clan will come after you. But if she's a slave woman, that, she's not allowed to cover up, because then they mess up, you mess up the system. You don't know who's who. And this is actually true. Umar ibn al-Khattab is known to have walked around, found slave women who are pretended to be free women by covering up, because they didn't want to be abused, and he used to beat them.
Yes.
And take the things off their head, take the cloak off or take the covering off. Say, you're not a free woman. Don't pretend to be a free woman. And that's true. That actually happened. And it's very, very obvious from the verse, because the verse doesn't say, let all women cover for modesty. It doesn't say that. It says, let your women cover up so that they be known and not abused. It's a self-identification mark, not for modesty. And that is correct. I agree with that.
That's what Islam teaches. Now, again, this guy, Javad, is not actually quoting this because he's saying he believes in it. He's saying this is what the Islamic tradition says. Again, his position is that because the tradition says something, or let's say, if the tradition says something, does that necessarily mean that that's what the Quran teaches, or that what Muhammad originally taught? He says no. Daniel says yes. Every traditional Muslim, your vast majority of people you run into that are Muslims, they're going to say yes. That's the tradition is representative of what Muhammad actually taught and the companions, and that first 3 generations who Muslims take or revere so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, so we might kind of pause and just kind of elaborate a little bit more, or read some of his points that he's just kind of going over, because he's going over it fast. He prepared a lot. It's a 6.5 hour debate, and so he's not going over every single point, but we can always pause and just kind of do what we're doing now. So let's continue on. So this is another, again, it's a Muslim just exposing Islam for us.
Allowed to cover up. This was forbidden because for slave girls, the aura, or the amount to cover, was just between the navel and the knees, and the breast could be uncovered. In fact, as Jonathan Brown writes, the amount to cover was just between the navel and the knees.
Okay. What do you say to this?
I mean, I hate to keep interrupting him because he's doing such a great job, but the aura, this is the word that if you've been watching Andrew Tate, you would know what that is. It's basically the part,
like the private
part that you ought to cover.
Yeah. And
it's different for men and women, obviously, Islamically. For men, it's ought to be from the navel to the knee. So that area should be covered. Andrew Tate recently posed with it uncovered, with the Quran sitting on top of himself. So Muslims have been talking about, his aura should be covered. For a woman, that is actually all of her except the hands and the face. So all of a woman's body is aura. Yeah, it's all private. But if she's free, it's the aura is different for a slave girl. For a slave girl, it's the same as the man.
Exactly.
So they say it's between navel and knee, which means she can walk around with her chest uncovered.
Yes.
And that's what actually all the scholars, the main Sunni scholars would say. And also that's what happened in history.
Yep.
Women, those slave girls, whether they be sold in the markets, they would be uncovered in that way, or whether they're walking around just doing normal stuff, shockingly enough.
Right. Now, again, so he's pointing out this is what Islam is through history. And you know what, kind of an analogy to what this guy believes in is sort of like the Mormons. The Mormons think that you have Jesus, you have the apostles, and then once Jesus ascends and the apostles die off, that Christianity just went completely apostate. This is what the Mormons believe until Joseph Smith came and he had, he restored when their false cults and their false religion, that he restored the true church and etc. That's kind of what this modernist guy believes. He thinks, okay, you have Muhammad, and once Muhammad died, that the religion just completely went completely apostate, and there's no connection historically between what Muhammad did and taught to the very next generation. It's like saying that Jesus and the apostles, like the very next generation, it's like saying that all those Christians just, there's no true Christians at that point. They just all went astray. Who can even conceive of such an idea that the true believers of the true followers of Jesus are just gonna all just die off, and there's none of them. That's exactly what this guy's saying, except for Muhammad. It's just, and in fact, you know what? They actually use that analogy in this debate. They actually use that analogy, and they admit that the disciples of Jesus taught the Trinity. They mistakenly say that Jesus didn't teach the Trinity, but they're trying to make the point that your disciples can teach something different from what their master or their Lord taught or believed in. Now, in the case of Jesus, they're completely wrong. Jesus, of course, he taught the Trinity. He taught his own divinity, and the disciples taught that as well. And same with the church fathers, the early church. Muslims, though, what they're trying to argue is that you can have a situation where you have someone teach something, and that their very immediate disciples are going to be going astray or teaching something different. So they believe, they're very, very strange that they both actually agreed to that. Daniel and Javad did, but Daniel, of course, rejects the idea that everyone is just going to go apostate. I mean, think about what do you have to say about that? It's like, okay, there's Muhammad, and once Muhammad dies, everyone just goes, like, they make up their own religion, basically. That's Javad's position. What do you think?
That's that basically tells you that Islam is a false religion, because if it was real from God, and God said that he would preserve it, to have it die off or change so much by the death the second the man dies, that tells me it's a cult. But in any case, I do want to listen to him maybe for a minute or so, maybe go back a few seconds for the people who have just joined us.
Yeah, let's go back to this part
just
here.
Just for them to hear how depraved it is.
Yeah, again, this is Islam.
Yeah,
this is Islam.
This is a Muslim.
And all this kind of stuff, and I agree with him. But then, how come he isn't bothered by this sexualization and objectification of women? Here's Ibn Umar, who is the Prophet's companion, who would put his hand between the breasts and buttocks of a slave girl before he was purchasing them. And this is a chain that's authenticated by Sheikh Al-Albani. And he would shake the breast of this woman, and when he would explain himself, he would say, "She is but an item for sale." In fact, the idea of examining the goods before you buy them, this was widely accepted by Islamic jurists, who said that this verse about covering up modestly, 3359, was actually only for free women. It wasn't for slave girls. In fact, slave girls were not allowed to cover up. This was forbidden, because for slave girls, the aura, or the amount to cover, was just between the navel and the knees, and the breasts could be uncovered. In fact, as Jonathan Brown writes in his book, buyers at slave markets could press on the buttocks and breasts of potential slave girls, no problem. And the Islamic jurists justified this. They were.
And by the way, don't get thrown off by the name. Jonathan Brown is a Muslim. He is a Muslim. Don't get thrown off by the name. Just wanted to jump in and say that.
They're okay with the sex slave trade. They're okay with sex slave markets. And you see here that I had to edit out these pictures. These women were just completely uncovered. This is the sexual ethics that he's trying to back up. He talks about family and having kids and all this kind of stuff. But here you have the medieval scholars. Here's Imam Ghazali saying, yeah, you can have coitus interruptus with your slave girl, that is, ejaculate outside of her, so that she doesn't dare get pregnant. So this, of course, had a corrosive effect on family life. In fact, it destroyed married and family.
Okay, so now he's gonna now his position again, Javad's position is that you can use your ethics, your personal morality to make judgments as to what is true and what is false. And so he's saying that because this is something that's so morally abhorrent and objectionable, we just intrinsically know that, therefore it can't be from God. And so that's his argument. That's what he's going to go on to argue. But what he did in that whole segment there, and he does this throughout the debate, is expose what Islam teaches. I mean, there's probably like a handful of Javads in the world. So these guys are, in terms of what he believes in, there's a handful of them. But the Muslims who believe in this, these are the ones who claim to be 1 billion today, 2 billion tomorrow, 3 billion, next week. Before the entire
Yeah.
world, they'll say, like, maybe next month they'll say 6 billion. This is what they believe in. So he's exposing Islam for us. This guy is really doing the job of just destroying and exposing Islam.
Yeah.
So there's I mean, honestly, we could just skip anywhere in this debate and just do exactly what we're doing now. We can just again, we can show, like, just go to a random part of the debate.
It's basically 7 hours of Islam being exposed.
Yeah.
I see a lot of shocked people in the chat. Yes, this is what Islam teaches, and I'm sorry to use these words. This is what these words were used in the debate. The quotas interruptus thing is actually something that Muhammad discussed with his companions. It's not something that came after him.
Right.
And they actually were worried about impregnating. There are many slave girls. There are many right hand possessed, and they asked him about it. That's in the Sunnah, and he said to them, "Actually, don't worry about it, because if the souls of human are ordained by Allah, which means if Allah wants you to have babies, He will make it will happen," kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just very, very depraved. Destruction of family life and all that stuff, it did happen in the centuries that came after Islam. That was because of Islamic teaching, and if anything, it proves that Islam is from the devil. So that argument actually is against Islam. It doesn't mean that it must be different from Islam since it's morally abhorrent and cause destruction of family life. That's proof that Islam is wrong.
Exactly.
And it does stem back from Islam.
Exactly.
You find even in, like, when we talk Christianity, even in societies that are not actually Christian but have been influenced by Christian values, even from like afar, you find that it's good and it's just and it's good stuff. If these Islamic societies have been influenced by anything from the spirit of Islam, even if they were not, even if they've deviated from Islam, if they were influenced by the spirit of Islam and they're that bad, that means that spirit, that influence is dark from the beginning. Because if it was good, we wouldn't have had it descend so much.
Yeah,
so
a bad tree
with bad fruit.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So that's why I use the analogy with the societies or countries that have been influenced by Christian morality or Christian ethics. Even if they're not actually following Christ, you can tell that there's a difference and it's better than it would have been otherwise.
Exactly. So for where can I watch this debate? I posted the link in the chat. There's the link. Again, it's 6.5 hours, and of course you already know this, but these are Muslims debating amongst themselves, so you're not going to get truth in terms of spiritual edification or some kind of life-giving thing or something that's from God in that regard. It's going to be just lifeless. It's going to be death, but you're going to get a true presentation of what Islam has historically been. Javad actually, I mean, if you watch the debates that Christians have with Muslims, he's really using the arguments that we use. And in some ways, he doesn't do that good of a job. He could press a little harder on certain points or whatever. In some areas, he actually provides more ammunition that we can use, and it's like, oh, thanks for helping us out. We can use that now.
I actually think that he's like one hairline away from apostatizing from Islam.
Yeah.
And I predict, that he will actually leave Islam eventually, because he knows how evil it is, and eventually the penny will drop. But brother, tell us about the drama that came after this debate.
Yeah. So So the drama that came after this debate, Daniel, I don't want to get into his personal life, but let's say that there's a personal situation that has affected Daniel and his family, and Muslims who don't agree with Daniel's approach. Well, we know that Muslims, they dox people, they try to get people killed. We've seen people do that. We've posted videos, we've shown videos where there are certain Muslims who go around and they dox people, and you have people like Shabir Ali who disassociate and disown those people. And these guys are just low scum, bottom of the barrel, scummy people. They're doxers and they're trying to get people killed. Okay, we know that those Muslims exist. However, those Muslims also exist within Islam. When they disagree with each other, they will try the same tactics. They'll dox each other. So there are Muslims who dox Daniel and exploit information about his family and their personal situation. They exploit that information and they dox him. This is his name. This is where he lives. Da 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 da. All these things. This is his family. This is his relative here. This is what they believe in. And so Daniel has a whole group of people who are trying to come after him. Muslims, by the way, Muslims who are coming after him and doing these things. What he found out after the debate was that Javad was actually, according to Daniel, I don't track everything these guys say, but according to Daniel, Javad retweeted posts that were doxing Daniel and his family and revealing personal information that could perhaps lead to him getting hurt or his family getting hurt or something. Who knows what people will do with the information. You put your information out there, someone else's information out there, you don't know what the other side who's reading it is going to do with that information. So it was brought to his attention that it was brought to Daniel's attention, and according to Daniel, this is true, that Javad retweeted some of these doxing things about Daniel and his family. Okay? Now, when that was brought to his attention, he said that in their next debate that they're going to have, he's not going to hold back at all. He's going to his goal. He actually said this. He said that my goal is to make you cry. That's what, because maybe whatever Javad posted was very personal to Daniel. Maybe it hurt him in some sort of way. But he said that was his response. He said, "I'm going to make you cry. That's my goal, to make you cry in the next debate." And Javad, his kind of response was, "Well, hey, I don't do a debate to lose." So basically saying, like, bring it on. Like, now Javad, he denies, whatever allegations about, Daniel being doxxed or whatever. Now, so in light of all this that's going on, we have a third member now in the Dawah scene. This guy on the way right, it's kind of Sajid, yeah. He looks Jewish in this picture.
He
Actually,
does,
it looks like
but
he's a
he's
kippah
not.
on. It's not a kippah though.
He's a Muslim.
He's a Muslim.
But notice, guys, as Brother Jai was talking here, he was very careful not to say what that information was about Daniel Hakikachu and his family, because us as Christians, we have an ethical, moral standard that is way high. Even though we are on the opposite side of these people, they are enemies of Christ. They say horrible things about Christ.
We would never want.
We would
harm
never
or
dream
physical-
of doxing or harming. In fact, I edit some.
We protect them.
Yeah, we
if
protect them.
could.
So I edit some videos about
Yasser Qadi.
Yasser Qadi, and I've had to beep out open threats of violence, take it out. I've had to remove stuff even from our videos when we show some of these views against Yasser Qadi, because I thought they might be harmful or incite violence towards him. So I was thinking, I don't even support this guy. He's an enemy of Christ. His ideology is dangerous and hurtful, but I'm protecting him from his own.
Exactly.
So we feel the same way here, even though these people believe in such horrible, terrible, evil, disgusting ideology that talks about women and slaves and all these things. We would never dream of sharing that information about them or even repeating it, even though it was said by their own brothers, Muslim brothers.
Again, it's Muslims who are doing this to each other. And so I don't know if Daniel listens to these stream. I know that because of these guys are like such like egomaniacs.
Yeah.
If you have like their name in the titles of videos or something like that, they'll like listen to everything. I remember one time. Well, anyway, it doesn't really matter. I guess all I'm trying to say, what we're trying to say, is that we would never, ever, ever intentionally put someone in danger. We would never. In fact, we would go out of our way to try to protect them physically from any violence or
In fact,
anything
we
like
pray
that.
for them.
We pray for them.
We pray for
We-
them for their souls.
we want them to be saved, and we don't wish harm on them in any way. Now, okay,
So Sajid.
Sajid gets involved, and Sajid begins to critique Daniel, and we're gonna show this. We're gonna show something on the screen here, a tweet that came to Daniel as a surprise. Well, okay. Yeah, it came to Daniel as a surprise. This came to Daniel as a surprise. Sajid talks about. I guess we could just read this one first. Maybe we'll just go through this one. Let's see. So people who haven't properly studied Islam themselves are now spending hours. So he's accusing Daniel of not properly studying Islam. So let me just uninterrupted just kind of read this here without my commentary, which is really hard not to do. But
Just read it, bro.
people who haven't properly studied Islam themselves are now spending hours debating it online with clear deviance, creating a huge platform to spread misguidance to thousands of viewers who studied the religion even less than the ones debating. And again, one of them is a PhD student, so like, does Sajid think he knows more than? Anyway, this is not Dawah nor education. This is a circus. Enjoy the juggling. Now, the reason why he says that is because Daniel actually does juggle in the inter. That's actually pretty funny. Okay, don't be surprised when you look back and realize you not only didn't benefit, but were actually harmed by exposing yourself to such nonsense and for taking your deen, your religion, from such people. And I guess, what is that? A tent, like a circus act or something like that.
Circus tent.
Now the juggling part, that's pretty funny because Daniel. So because it was a 6.5 hour debate, there were times when they took 5-minute breaks so that they could go pray. And I guess Daniel and Javad live in different time zones, so they would be praying at different times. One of the times when Javad had to go pray, Daniel was speaking with the host of the debate, who I believe is a Christian. He's a Christian. They were trying to entertain people while Javad was doing his 5-minute prayer. And the reason why I'm emphasizing on the 5-minute part is because they were saying, "Hey, give us 10 minutes." No, give it. No, Daniel is going back saying, "No, it only takes you 5 minutes to pray." So they're actually like doubling down on the fact that your prayers are so short that like it only takes 5 minutes. You don't need 10 minutes. So anyway, so during those intermission or whatever you want to call them, those periods where they're trying to pray or whatever, Daniel actually starts to juggle. And like he actually was juggling some I think it was like some sort of balls or something like that. And he said he used to juggle pins in college or something. So I guess that so just kind of he was actually that was actually pretty funny. Sajid was like
Sajid was hurt because some of the facts of his religion were exposed by the other.
Yeah.
Okay, it couldn't have been nice for him to see, the slave girls walking naked and all that in Muslim tradition, stuff that was presented by the other side. That's why he says you look back and you realize you caused harm to like spreading misguidance and all that stuff. So he's not. I don't think Javid is a deviant for opening the sources, just like we're not deviant by opening the same sources and asking about them or saying, "Oh, what do you think of that?" That's really shameful. So that's what I think Sajid is whispering about here.
Yeah, so the juggling part was the only funny part here. Everything else, he's just very hurt that his religion is being exposed.
Right.
And Daniel responds to this. I don't know how this okay. He said, "You used to be a huge fan of my debates, Sajid. What happened?" And he gives this laughing face. So he shows the debates.
Well,
Daniel
with our brother David Wood.
Daniel did debate David. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they did debate. And then he debated apostate prophet as well. Oh, sorry, that's not apostate prophet. That's
Destiny.
Destiny. But the reason why I was thinking apostate prophet is because he comes up a number of times in their debates. But yeah, so I guess that's an atheist or liberalism versus Islam,
Yeah.
and then violence and intolerance, Christianity versus Islam. Yeah, David always does good in his debates. That's a good debate. But anyway, the point is that Sajid was promoting these debates and suggesting that Daniel did well in his view, which obviously for the Daniel Hakishi and David Wood debate, he did very poorly. David did great in that debate. And anyway, he just turned around on him. He said, "What happened?" And so his response here.
Uh-oh. You used to work for Yaqeen Institute and are on video saying verbatim what you've relentlessly criticized others for today. So you're smart enough to know that this isn't a huge gotcha meme like you would like it to be. As for what happened, as Knowledge North released 4 videos you're conveniently ignored explaining the actual issues people have with you.
Now, this video is about Daniel becoming an extremist or something, and here's like the playlist for it. 7 parts about the doubts and deceit of Daniel. Now, just going back here, this is the meme. There's some sort of.
Yeah, it's. I think
Oh, it's the next one.
It's the next
Okay,
one.
so let's just exit out of this one, and we're gonna share the other screen here. So Daniel was critiquing.
Let's read the meme first.
Well, let's just. I just want to explain. Just Daniel was critiquing him. Sorry, Sajid was critiquing Daniel for giving this guy a platform, and then they're making a meme to respond back to it. So go ahead.
Every single Madkhali argument against debates applies for their reaction videos. 2. Introducing the Zindiq Murtad to your audience, allowing your audience to hear their argument, going back and forth with them for a few hours. So that's Daniel.
No, this one's a few weeks. So
And the other side is doing the exact same thing,
except for a few weeks.
So he's saying, well, you did the same with Apostate Prophet for a few weeks.
Exactly. So he's just saying, look, you're giving an audience to someone who has different views than you. What are you doing?
Yeah.
You're giving an audience to someone who has different views than you.
What do you mean allowing your audience to hear their argument? Is their audience not allowed to hear another point of view?
Are they like enchained or something? like imagine if we told our viewers here. Oh, we weren't showing the screen. Sorry. Here it is. But imagine telling the viewers here, as if we were to tell you all here, okay, we're allowing you to go to this other channel and watching you can't, there's no control. People, you can't control a YouTube channel, or content creators can't control what their audience does and doesn't do. It just doesn't, you just don't have that sort of control. So Muslims are very upset that some Muslims are very upset, I should say, that other Muslims will bring other people onto their platforms who have differing views than them.
Yeah, so for people who didn't, we didn't show it. So Daniel Haqiqatchu is basically showing the hypocrisy of Sajid, because Sajid accused him of giving the other guy a platform. He's saying, well, you spoke about Apostate Prophet for a few weeks too. So he's basically saying you've done the same thing. But our problem is, why is it a problem for them to allow their audience to hear another argument?
Yeah.
Why is it, like you said, brother, an echo chamber?
Yeah.
You
can't allow in other views.
Why is it a sin? Why is it a sin to allow your audience to hear?
But even the word allow.
Allow. So they're not allowed to hear another argument.
Yeah. Okay. So Daniel. By the way, didn't Daniel and Uthman, didn't they have something as well? They did. And the guy. What's the guy's name? Something Abu Karim or Karim Abu Zayd Abu Karim, one of those
Karim
guys. Yeah, him. He said they have like, so they have all sorts of problems with each other. So they're calling him Madkhali, which is a type of it's a sect of this, I guess you can say an offshoot of the Salafis, or a group within the Salafis. You have like a group within them called the Madkhalis, who follow And so anyway, they're accusing Sajid of being one of them. Yasser Qali does that as well, by the way. He calls Farida neo madkhali, and he likes to use that term for people actually.
Yeah. We would
So
never,
that's all he
yeah.
means when he says
we would
that.
never say to you, our audience, you are not allowed to hear what
Yeah.
Muslims say. In fact, we have all these big live stream.
And so the other terms, I guess, apart from madkhali, maybe zindiq and murtad, an apostate, and zindiq is someone who's like
Like
atheist
a
or
zindiq
unbeliever.
yeah, someone who's
Yeah, but
unbeliever.
unbeliever. Yeah, it's okay. So okay, yeah, that's
an
basically
immoral unbeliever.
the the zindiq is a little bit more, it has a little bit more flair than like a kafir.
Yeah, it's basically someone who's immoral, who's like
Yeah,
into the pleasures of life.
yeah,
stuff like
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So so just looking at the comments, someone says because Islam is about micromanaging people, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zindiq. Okay, yeah, heretic. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so basically, yeah, they're basically saying an apostate, a heretic. And yeah, I guess that's the meme. We have, of course, 6.5 hours of different other things we could be commenting on with this debate, but yeah, maybe we can. Let's share our kind of background here again. Let's get this up on the background. Okay. So yeah, any comments from anybody or anything that you guys would like us to interact with in terms of what we've said so far, or maybe related to the debate, maybe if there was a point that you heard or something that you thought was worth highlighting. I'll be honest, I watched all of the cross-examination parts. I think there were 45 minutes each, and I probably spread that out through like a day or two. I had like, some time here to listen to this part, then the next day I listened to the next part, and something like that. And I was able to listen to all of the cross-examination portions, and I think the Q&A as well. I think I listened to all the Q&A as well. I didn't listen to the opening statements in all of the debates or the rebuttals in all of the debates. It's just way too much, and the cross-examination is the most it's, to me, that's the best part of the debate. If you understand what they're debating, then the cross-examination is when they really are going to be pressing each other on the technicalities and the specifics. So you kind of get a gist of what the arguments are, and then you get to see them press it on each other. So I didn't really find too many things that were like highlight worthy. It was really just like one guy saying, yeah, you're right, Islam does say that you can have sex slaves and things like that, but that doesn't apply for today. Our meta ethics or whatever he was saying doesn't allow for that, or it's very. So then the other guy was saying, well, yeah, you do have this for today. So it wasn't really like that good of a debate, to be honest. But the kind of the good part, or the highlight worthy part, is just the different directions of Dawah that these Muslims, like, they're scrambling, and that's kind of just what we want to bring to people's attention. These guys are just scrambling with how they're going to go forward with their Dawah. Okay. We're just kind of reading through your comments now and seeing if there's anything. Yeah, so Daniel's also known for promoting child marriage. He's known for all sorts of crazy things that, just really what Islam teaches. Do you think that Hashmi actually believes his claims about all the slavery, aggression, intolerance, etc., are interpolated back onto Muhammad by the later scholars? Now, I thought that Daniel was raising. So Daniel, because he just doesn't care how Islam sounds to people, like he'll. I mean, in some regards, he's. I haven't heard him extensively talk on different Islamic topics. So, for example, I've never heard Daniel talk about preservation of the Quran or something like that. But I'm sure if I did hear him talk about preservation of the Quran, he would be lying. Most, statistically speaking, most Muslims who talk about the topic lie about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if he lied about that topic. But when it comes to these kind of moral issues, he seems to not really care what people think, right?
Yeah, he doesn't.
So
He doesn't mind.
yeah,
Like things like child marriage, he would try to defend it. He will go down the line of, well, the Western civilization is corrupt anyway. We are over sexualized. Child marriage may be the answer, type thing.
yeah,
Like he said, child marriage is the answer to, our young people now, teenagers becoming sexual too early. He said best to just put them in a marriage, which is horrendous. Well, if you put them in a marriage with adults, you sort of quench that type
yeah.
thing. So he would actually try to defend that, but he wouldn't deny it, which is good,
Yeah.
in my opinion, because that.
You guys are just kind of reading your comments.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You're reading your comments. They're quite good comments.
Yeah.
We've got one more here.
But
question.
I just want to go back because I didn't actually get to the answer of that. I was kind of giving some background of to the question, and I just so what I noticed was the reason why I brought up Daniel, and I know that the question was about Javad, was because there was a point where Daniel was talking about war and violence, and he was trying to say, Javad, if what you're saying is like the hadith tradition is just something later Muslims are kind of interpolating or putting into the mouth of Muhammad or into the mouths of earlier Muslims to try to give it some sort of authority, if in other words, if this stuff is not really authentic Islam, then why do we have early Muslim armies invading Christian lands, or Christian lands, and we have the writings from Christians talking about how violent Muslims are and talking about how Muslims are bloodthirsty, they're subjugating them, and they're being commanded by so by Islam or whatever to do this. That's what Daniel was arguing. So Daniel was basically trying to say, look, it's not just the hadith that testify to Muslims being violent and bloodthirsty and savages, but it's also these Christian chroniclers and Christian saints as well who talk about the fact that Muslims were subjugating and attacking them and being violent very, very early after Muhammad died. So Daniel was trying to make the point that it's not just later Muslims trying to kind of project something on to this is how Islam should be practiced, but it seems to be like this is how Islam was from the very beginning. So to get to your question, do I think that Javad, by the way, didn't have a good answer for that. In fact, I was really unimpressed with how he interacted with the historical points when he claims to be a historian, or he is a historian, I guess. His point, he just really just drops the ball when it comes to interacting with these points. Maybe because he knows he can't actually refute them. Maybe that's what it is. So do we think that Hashimi actually believes these things? I don't know. What would you say? Like, it's hard to say like what he believes, but he knows that the earliest Muslims believed exactly what Daniel is saying. And so for me, I can't wrap my mind around you saying that the founder of your religion couldn't communicate, the beliefs accurately, his practices accurately to the very next generation. And the very next generation, they went astray. Like, I think that he must, I mean, I don't know, any person who can actually really attribute that to their leader. Like, like this guy founded your religion, and you're saying that he wasn't able to communicate really true Islam to the very next generation. So I don't think it makes sense that Javad just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. I can't really comment on if he really believes in it or not, but it doesn't make sense to me how he can adopt or take that position that Muhammad taught something completely different than what his very next generation followers, or same generation, his companions practiced and taught.
I think he knows that. Well, I know, and everyone can see that whether he believes it or not, it still means Islam is a false religion. Because imagine a religion where one person knows the full truth, the unadulterated, pure truth, and that gets quenched as soon as he dies, and then his followers do something completely different. When we look at Christ, he chose the 12 apostles. Imagine after Jesus ascended, they all started believing something completely different and spread a completely different message. That's not what happened. What happened was they followed the exact. He breathed on them the spirit of truth, and they kept that. He said, "I'm leaving you, but I'm leaving my spirit with you to preserve that truth." Now that's a true religion, really, in that its power doesn't end when the person leaves.
Yeah. And we still have that today.
And we still have it
It
today.
goes from then until
today. We have the Spirit of
Yeah.
God, and the gospel message is exactly the same. In fact, God was so generous with that he influenced them. He inspired them with his spirit to write the gospels, to preserve that truth with the same spirit. So whether he believes it or not, it still equals that Islam is false. And if Muhammad is the same as his companions, and then we get this corrupted, horrible, evil, depraved religion, then Islam is false. If he was completely righteous and they're all completely unrighteous and spread something completely different, then their God failed them at the first generation, then Islam is still false. And so both of them don't look good. It's not ending good for Islam either way.
Yeah. Now, okay, so we had another question.
Yes.
But not let's ignore that one. That's later. So this one, the other first guy, that was the one. Let's see. Okay. So does Daniel just defend his beliefs, or does he promote his type of Islam? No, Daniel did a good job defending his position. Well, actually, he did a good job defending his position. But again, what I stated on the onset was that one of the weaknesses of Daniel, on just a like personal kind of comment about him, is that he doesn't seem to be good on the spot with things. He kind of fumbles with.
You want to?
Yeah, we can give an example
Yeah,
of
we
that.
can give you an
We can give you
example.
an example. In fact, what like when Daughter of Christ, when Daughter of Christ and I were just watching it, like just off the top of our heads, we were able to kind of think about how to respond to the thing, and but
we
Daniel,
knew the answer.
like we were thinking, wow, if that was us, and we're not Muslims, obviously, if you're a former Muslim or not, we're just saying that he's not able to maybe he's just not good on his feet. I don't know, but he's supposed to be a debater. So anyway,
So
let's try to get to.
So brother, do you know the timestamp?
It's somewhere over here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Do we have the right one?
Yeah, let's just we'll show you guys an example of what we're talking about. So whether he defended his beliefs or not, yet he did defend his beliefs, but when he was pressed on certain questions, he's not really that good at answering the questions, but he is good at promoting what Islam teaches. Like, this is what Islam says.
Right.
But when he's pressed on, like, okay, the verse says, I just don't think he's used to that. Like, you're not gonna, like, if he's used to talking to non-Muslims,
he's meant to be able to debate Muslim debates.
Yeah, but if he's but if he's used to debating non-Muslims aren't going to quote the Quran and be like, look, the Quran is saying that you can't, do X. Like, let's say, like, they're talking about sex slavery. Non-Muslims aren't going to quote the Quran and say, look, this verse says you cannot have sex slaves, you have to marry them. So he's definitely not used to hearing those arguments. But you can still be better prepared, I guess, if you're going to have these debates. And especially since that they've been doing this with each other, like they've been going back and forth with each other for like years now on Twitter.
So Surah 425 was the here it is. Okay, so let's
just this is so we're just kind of gonna try to find the spot here. This is not the one. But yeah, you just want to, just as I find this.
Yeah, so it was basically an objection that Javed brought to Daniel about Surah 4 verse 25, talking about the use of, or if you can marry a sex slave, if you can marry a slave girl, and we're just finding it to play for you guys. Yeah, we found it.
Okay. So again, we're just showing that although that Daniel is actually representing the position, he might not know how to defend it from the Quran too well, or be able to interpret it.
Okay, let's
we're
play
going to
it.
put it on the screen here, and you guys can just kind of hear this interaction for yourselves.
The means to marry free believing women.
That's correct. So you know what that means?
So you don't,
That's
you don't have the
saying- that's-
resources. You don't have the money to
100%
marry a free,
correct.
you can't give the mahar. So then you can opt for a slave girl. That doesn't mean
That's
everyone who has a slave girl has to
That's
marry
actually-
the
that's
slave
actually
girl.
That's actually an argument against you, Daniel, because
So,
that's saying
no.
that the Quran is saying that it's actually preferable to only marry free women. And then if you can't do
Yeah,
that,
it is.
then wait, hold on. Let me make the argument so you can understand. It's saying that it's preferable to marry free believing women. And only if you can't do that, then marry the believing young women and to wed them and not to take them as fornicators or lovers. So the Quran is actually discouraging any sexual intercourse with slave girls. But if you do have to have it, then marry them.
If it's a conditional, whoever
No, my
does not
friend.
have the means
Yes,
to marry.
this is an argument against you.
No,
It's not-
It's not.
Okay, so then let me
there's
ask-
nowhere in this verse. There's
then-
nowhere in
then-
this
then
verse
let me-
that says
Okay.
if you have a slave girl,
It literally says
sexual
don't take them as
intercourse is
fornicators
only
or lovers.
permissible. That's
So
exactly. It
why-
all
why-
hinges on your bizarre interpretation of
Bizarre. It's just
taking
reading the
them
verse.
as fornicators.
So you're just
fornicators.
look. So you're just presupposing this is.
It's
the
not
question begging that you're
fornication
doing.
if you. It
You're-
is.
Just
It's
to be
question
sure that
begging
we don't
on
have too
your
much
part.
interrupting, gentlemen.
It's
just to bring-
question begging on your part because
It's
you're
your
assuming
part.
that
You're
fornication.
assuming
You cannot have permissible sexual intercourse with a slave girl. You're baking in your
that's
presumption
literally in the verse
into
that says you're taking
verse.
them as lovers. Do you not think that if you have a sex girl, that's your lover?
Bring up the
Is
verse.
it not
Bring
your
up the
lover?
verse.
Okay,
Let me
let's bring
show
up
you
the verse.
exactly.
Yeah,
Bring
yeah,
up the
show
verse.
me, please. And then we'll take a look at the other verse, which actually says specifically, be chaste if you can't do that. It doesn't say go and have sex with a concubine. You're presupposing that your interpretation is correct simply because that was the historical interpretation. That's simply what you're doing. You're presupposing it. But the whole debate between you and me is about whether traditionalism.
One of the things that Daniel says over and over in these interactions is that's your bizarre interpretation, or that's your and a lot of times he's right. That is, Javad's bizarre interpretation, and Javad is just kind of way out of nowhere when it comes to interpreting the verses. But Daniel's just not able to defend why it's a bizarre interpretation. Like, he can't contextually go into why he's wrong. Now, Javad is wrong, but Daniel's just not. He's not either. I don't know. Maybe he's. What would you say? Why can't he do that? Maybe he's not. He doesn't know the context of the verses well enough.
He doesn't know the tafsir.
Yeah.
I would have expected him to know the tafsir, and he would have shut the other guy down very quickly. So the question was, what Jabir was trying to say is, you can't just have sex with a slave. You have to marry her. That's what Jabir is trying to say, because the verse says, do not take them as lovers. But Daniel was like, of course you can have sex with a sex slave. That's what they're there for. The actual answer is, if you read the tafsirs, the context of this verse is talking about poor people who can't afford.
But by the way, this
anything.
only took us like a minute to do. Like,
Yeah.
you could have done this in the debate. Like,
Yeah.
just read the verse.
It takes 1 minute to pull out the tafsir.
Yeah.
It's basically, if you're poor, you don't have anyone, you don't have any woman of any kind, no wife, no sex slave. It's about paying other people for their sex slaves. So you go and you pay basically less than if you were to give mahar, dowry to a free woman, because they cost less. Someone else's,
Not your own.
not your own. And if you go to the tafsir Ibn Kathir or Qurtubi or Tabari, they all say you can go to another believer who has those sex slaves and say, I can give you money for her, which will be less so than if it were dowry for a free woman. That's basically what it is.
So, in other words, if you have your own slaves, you don't need to marry them. You can just have sex with them and use them as you want to.
Right.
However, if you're not able to afford a wife and a free woman, then you go for someone else's slave and you marry that slave.
Right.
So these are not your own slaves. So Daniel, he just kind of dropped the ball here. Maybe he's not familiar with this verse, or he doesn't know the interpretation. Well, he obviously doesn't know the interpretation.
He knows though that sex slaves are for that. So it doesn't make sense to him. Why can't I have her if she's a sex slave? because the context here is not talking about that. It's talking about someone else's
Yeah.
slave. But anyway, it's all disgusting. Like, it's all like two people talking about sex slaves and how to use them and when and what to pay for what. Even this verse is really, really disgusting if you look at it, because it's saying that if you can't afford a free woman, pay a bit less for a sex slave. It's basically like trying to purchase women with money. It's sick.
Yeah, and this comes right before the verse that tells you that you can just go and have as many as you want to, and they're not off limits to you to have sex with them.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay, so that's hopefully that answers this question here. Again, any other comments or anything that anybody wants to say about this debate, or something that we can we're just gonna go into your comments here.
Just because it says not as fornicators or lovers in this instance, when you're wedding them, doesn't mean you can't have sex with them under different. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But actually, there are many verses in the Quran that talk about you're allowed up to 4 wives and whatever your right hand possesses from sex slaves. That's Surah 4, verse 3. Also, there's other verses that talk about you have to guard your chastity except for your wives or what your right hand possess. So obviously it says your wives and your right hand possess, which means you don't guard your chastity with them. That means you have relations with them. It's very obvious that obviously they're there for that.
Yeah, so
I don't have any of my
yeah, so
just
just a troll.
we have a lot of trolls today.
Yeah, the Islam Truth Finder guy,
Yeah, and now this guy
Talk Lounge.
pretending.
One is another troll too. He was in Arabic before talking to Light of Christ. Remember that? So I don't know. So for some reason, these trolls are just kind of trying to distract people from the topics.
Yep.
But yeah, obviously, they're lying, and they just try to distract people.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's. I guess we can kind of. It's been almost an hour and a half. This is just kind of one of the Dawah drama topics that we wanted to cover today. Again, we have many others many other points of Dawah drama. Again, why are we going over this? We're going over this to show the people that the Muslims are losing the sense of direction in which they're taking Dawah. They're fighting civil wars, Dawah civil wars, drama between themselves. And we just want to show the people, the Muslims who follow them, that their leaders that they look up to, the people that they try to, the mannerisms that they try to copy, the arguments, these guys are completely going crazy. They don't know how to lead you. They're failing you, and they're going to continue to. It's the blind leading the blind, and they're going to continue to fight. They're going to continue to fight each other, and they're going to fight you as well. If you ever become a da'i yourself, you'll notice that these guys, because they're such crazy egomaniacs, they don't get along with each other. They'll end up fighting you as well if you make it to that level. We're here to tell you that in spite of all the Dawah drama, that there is hope for you, and there's salvation available for you, that the Lord Jesus can save you if you turn to him, and if you repent of Islam, repent of your sins, come to him, and that's how you have eternal life. So any closing thoughts, sister?
No, brother, you said it perfectly. Because they have the devil, they belong to the devil. They're going to end up eating each other alive type thing, and harming each other and going after each other. We're not talking about debating. We're talking about doxing and insulting and attacking. There's no love in Islam, even in between themselves. If you want, real love, brotherly love, you want the love from the Lord, you have to go somewhere else. And that somewhere else is to come under the Lord Jesus Christ, under his authority. Go on, brother.
Yeah. So we just thank everybody for being here, and we ask all the believers to please pray for Muslims to come to the Lord Jesus Christ. Of course, all unbelievers, we pray for their salvation, and we just ask all the Muslims here to just pay close attention to your leaders and see how they're lying, they're deceiving, and they're causing civil wars amongst themselves. So thank you everybody for being here. Jesus is Lord, and we will end it there. Thank you so much. God bless you all.